He's been in the chair for less than 20 minutes when he starts talking. Not because he was forced, not because the evidence was overwhelming. There wasn't much. He starts talking because some part of him has wanted to do this for a long time. One by one, the confessions come. Detroit, Seattle, Honolulu, Hong Kong, Thailand, Singapore, the names of women, the locations, details only the person responsible would know. His mood shifts, calm, then tense, then calm again. The detectives later said it felt like watching someone unpack something they'd been carrying for years. What does that tell us? A man who speaks with that level of ease is not in a moment of panic. He's someone who has been rehearsing, someone who has lived with this, and is now finally ready to speak. John Eric Armstrong, born November 23, 1973, honorably discharged from the United States Navy, husband, father, one of the most widely traveled serial offenders in documented criminal history. This is his profile. Before we examine the crimes, we have to understand how he was shaped, because Armstrong is not a mystery. In many ways, he follows patterns, and that's exactly what makes him unsettling. He was born in New Bern, North Carolina, in 1973, a small coastal city with a strong military presence and working-class roots. By most outward appearances, his childhood seemed ordinary. Classmates described him as quiet, reserved, a little distant, no immediate warning signs. But inside his home, things were very different. Armstrong later described growing up in an environment marked by serious mistreatment. This is important, not because it excuses anything, but because it helps explain how his internal world was formed. A home that should have been safe instead became a source of confusion and fear. That kind of early experience can distort how a child understands trust, connection, and control. Then, in 1978, when Armstrong was 5 years old, his younger brother Michael died suddenly at just 2 months old. The impact on him was immediate and intense. He reacted in a way that showed deep emotional distress, the kind that a child doesn't have the tools to process. It wasn't just grief. It was overwhelming confusion and pain. Shortly after, his father left the family. So while one source of harm disappeared, another form of loss took its place. Armstrong was now growing up in a space shaped by absence, instability, and unresolved emotion. He didn't receive meaningful psychological help until 1989. That's more than a decade of carrying experiences he couldn't fully understand or express. By the time he was 15, another critical moment occurred. Faced with a situation he wasn't emotionally prepared for, he withdrew completely and experienced a serious emotional breakdown. He was hospitalized for a month. What stands out here is not aggression, it's retreat. When faced with pressure, he turned inward. He shut down. That tells us something important. By this point, he already associated vulnerability with danger and closeness with a loss of control. He returned home. He went back to school. But internally, something had already taken shape. By his mid-teens, Armstrong had built an identity around one core feeling: powerlessness. Many of his early experiences reinforced it: loss, instability, and a sense that life was happening to him, not something he could influence. Over time, that kind of internal pattern can create a strong desire to reverse the feeling, to gain control, to never feel small or overwhelmed again. Not connection, but control. Not vulnerability, but dominance. The world had felt unpredictable to him. Eventually, he would seek to become the one in control of that unpredictability. He found his first structured opportunity at 18 when he enlisted in the United States Navy. The military, for a certain type of person, is not discipline. It is cover. Armstrong joins in April 1992. He is assigned to the USS Nimitz, at the time one of the largest nuclear-powered aircraft carriers ever built. The ship is enormous. The crew numbers in the thousands. It sails to ports across the Pacific, the Middle East, Southeast Asia. Shore leave is frequent. To his rack mates, Armstrong is moody. To his superiors, his record is clean. He is nicknamed Baby Doll, a reference to his young-looking face, his almost childlike features set against a body that is over 6 feet tall and heavily built. The nickname will feel very different by the time this case is over. Nobody flags him. Nobody is watching. He has disappeared into the machinery of the institution. What happens next is claimed, not confirmed. Armstrong later confesses to killing a woman as early as 1991, before he even enlists. He describes a total of 11 murders committed during his 7 years in the Navy, Seattle, Honolulu, Hong Kong, Thailand, Singapore, North Carolina, Virginia. Police in Hawaii and Thailand investigate his claims. They find no matching cases. Israeli authorities look into a possible connection to a murder in Haifa and ultimately rule it out. One of his Seattle descriptions changes between tellings, first a transgender woman, then a black man who approached him for money, and investigators note the inconsistency. Some of what Armstrong confesses to during those hours in the interrogation room may be true. Some of it may be inflated. What we cannot do is verify it. What we can say is this: whether the specific international body count is accurate or not, Armstrong arrived back in Michigan in 1999 with an established behavioral pattern. He was not a man who was about to start killing. He was a man who had been killing, or who had been rehearsing killing, for years. The Michigan murders are not the origin. They are the continuation. There is a psychological term for what the Navy provided him, a structured environment for uninhibited practice. Every port was a new jurisdiction. Every sex worker was a woman with no fixed address and a lifestyle that made her disappearance plausible. Every time the ship sailed, Armstrong sailed with it, out of reach, out of record. He wasn't hiding. He was operating inside a system that inadvertently made him invisible. In 1999, the USS Nimitz returns. Armstrong is honorably discharged. He marries the woman he met on board. They move to Dearborn Heights, Michigan. He enrolls at Schoolcraft College. They have a child. The neighbors will later describe him as a nice guy, a good father, the kind of person who waves from the driveway. He is 25 years old. He is not done. The double life is one of the most consistent features of this type of offender, and it is always misread as evidence of complexity. It is not complex. It is compartmentalization, a wall between the version of himself he performs for the people around him and the version of himself that is actually in control. Armstrong performs well. He cycles through jobs, retail, security, fueling aircraft at Detroit Metropolitan Airport. He is unremarkable at everyone. His wife has no idea. His neighbors have no idea. The college he attends has no idea. 10 miles from his front door is Michigan Avenue, Detroit. And on Michigan Avenue and the surrounding streets along 8 Mile Road, sex workers are working. Armstrong knows the area. He drives out in his Jeep. He picks up women. He pays for sex. And then he kills them. The first confirmed Michigan victim is Monica Johnson, 31 years old, December 2nd, 1999. She is picked up on Michigan Avenue by a man in a Jeep, driven to a secluded spot, strangled, left in a service drive near an alley. A passerby finds her still alive hours later. By the time the ambulance arrives at the hospital, she is dead. No CCTV, no eyewitnesses, No leads. Detroit. Police have almost nothing. Then January 1st, 2000. Wendy Jordan, 39 years old. Armstrong picks her up on Warren Avenue, drives her to the parking lot of a funeral home. He kills her there. He drives with her body to a bridge over the Rouge River in Dearborn Heights. He throws her in. He goes home. He goes home to his wife and his child. On New Year's Day. The next morning, January 2nd, Armstrong calls in sick to work, gets in his Jeep, drives to the bridge, stops, gets out, looks over the railing, flags down a passerby, reports the body. This act has been described as arrogant, as risk-seeking, as evidence of some desire to be caught. I would reframe it differently. Armstrong returning to that bridge is not about a death wish. It is about consumption. He has already killed this woman. Now he wants to watch what happens next. He wants to see the machinery of consequence begin to move, and to stand outside it, untouched. That is not a man who wants to be caught. That is a man who believes he cannot be caught. There is a significant difference. Dearborn Heights police question him. He is calm. His story is weak, but without hard evidence, they cannot hold him. They take DNA samples, which Armstrong consents to. They send it to the lab, then they wait. He walks out and gets back in his Jeep. The spring of 2000 is when the pattern fractures into something the police can no longer ignore. Armstrong accelerates. He is no longer operating on a timeline of weeks or months. He is operating on days. March and April 2000. A woman named Wilhelmina Drain, 42, gets into his Jeep after he offers her a lift. He misses the turn toward her home, pulls over, reaches for her. She sprays him with mace and escapes. April 7th. He approaches Devon Marcus with $40 and an offer for sex. When they are alone, he attempts to strangle him. Marcus escapes. The same week, another woman is attacked by a man matching the same description. She survives. 3 survivors in less than 2 weeks. Each one can describe him. Each one describes the same man. And none of their reports, yet, land on the same desk. April 10th, 2000. A passenger on a freight train looks out the window as it moves through southwest Detroit. She sees something on the side of the tracks, tells the conductor. The conductor contacts police. Detectives arrive and find a woman's body 10 to 15 yards from the tracks, not concealed. Lying in the open on grass and gravel, tights wrapped around her neck. They walk north, more brush. A second body. They keep walking. A third. 3 women. Different states of decomposition, which means different times of death. Same location, same cause of death. Strangulation by ligature. Same positioning. The posing is the element that demands the most attention from a profiling standpoint. Armstrong later explains it himself, in custody, with complete absence of shame. He posed the bodies so that he could return and have sex with them. He knew they would always be there. This is post-mortem sexual activity, and it is one of the most significant psychological data points in the entire Armstrong case. It tells us that for Armstrong, the victim's death is not the end of his relationship with her. It is the beginning of the relationship he actually wants, one in which she cannot refuse him, cannot leave, cannot exercise any will of her own. He is creating the permanent availability that real relationships have never offered him. Every woman in his life has represented unpredictability, loss, or threat. His mother could not protect him. His girlfriend left him for someone else. A betrayal Armstrong interpreted as transactional, his word for it. The sex workers on Michigan Avenue are women he pays. He controls the terms, And when he kills them, he controls every term permanently. The 3 women at the railroad yard are identified through fingerprints. Robin Brown, 20 years old. Rose Marie Felt, 32. Kelly Jean Hood, 34. Kelly Hood's son, Kyle, is 9 years old. His grandmother is the one who tells him. She comes up the stairs and says, "They found your mum. She's not here with us anymore." Kelly Hood had started using drugs after her own father died. She was trying to fund her addiction. By every account from the people who knew her, she was a woman in pain trying to find her way back. Armstrong made sure she never did. Detroit police now understand what they have. Not a single homicide, not even a cluster. A serial killer. Active, escalating, and still free. The FBI's Behavioral Science Unit is called in. Their profile is precise. White male, 25 to 30, organized, likely formerly military, probably with an established domestic life that gives him cover. They advise the task force to look for a survivor. Someone who got away and can describe him. The survivors are already out there. They just haven't all been connected yet. Detectives flood Michigan Avenue with plainclothes surveillance teams. They are looking for a white male with reddish hair, a tiger tattoo on his arm, driving a jeep, wearing a work shirt with the name Eric on it. The description has been built from 3 different surviving victims, none of whom know each other, and it is consistent across all 3. They do not have to wait long. Just after midnight on April 11th, a marked patrol unit spots a jeep in the surveillance area. The driver's behavior is consistent with someone looking for a pickup. They pull him over. Routine stop. Request ID. Run the plates. The man steps out of the vehicle. The officers see the tiger tattoo. As they place him in the back of the patrol car, a woman walks past. She looks at him and says, "That's the man who tried to kill me." In the back of the patrol car, John Eric Armstrong begins to mutter under his breath, "I'm glad it's over. I'm glad you got me." He is taken to the 5th floor of Detroit Police Headquarters. The interview begins. What happens in that room over the next several hours is one of the most psychologically instructive moments in this entire case, because Armstrong doesn't lawyer up. He doesn't stonewall. He doesn't ask questions or play for time. He performs. He gives them everything: dates, locations, methods, details no one outside the investigation could know. And he does it with a fluency that borders on rehearsed. At one point, a detective places his hand over Armstrong's and tells him, "Anything you touched, we will find your DNA there." There is no version of this where you walk away clean. It is a tactical move, and it works, but not because it frightens Armstrong into talking. He was already talking. What it does is give him permission to close the last gap, to perform the full confession rather than just the partial one. He confesses to Monica Johnson, Wendy Jordan, Robin Brown, Rose Marie Felt, Kelly Jean Hood, 5 women in Michigan. Then he keeps going. Seattle, Honolulu, Hong Kong, Thailand, Singapore, North Carolina, Virginia. The murders come in sequence, each with enough detail that the detectives in the room are no longer sure what they have in custody. By the time the arraignment window closes, Armstrong has described involvement in as many as 30 killings. Investigators contact police departments across multiple countries. Some of the details check out in outline. Many do not. Hawaii and Thailand find no matching cases. Israeli authorities close the Haifa connection. One Seattle account changes in a significant way between tellings. The international body count Armstrong claims cannot be confirmed, but the psychology of the confession itself is worth examining. Because Armstrong is not confessing out of guilt. If he felt guilt, he would have stopped after the first murder. He would not have returned to the railroad yard. He would not have walked into a police station and reported the body of a woman he had thrown off a bridge the night before. Guilt produces avoidance. Armstrong produces the opposite. What the confession is appetite. He has spent 27 years collecting power over people in secret. Now, in that room, the confession is the performance. The audience is real. The reaction is real. This is the largest moment of dominance he has ever experienced. Not the killings, but the telling of them. The room full of law enforcement, unable to look away, unable to stop listening, unable to do anything except receive what he gives them. He controls the room. One last time. By the time Armstrong stands trial in February 2001, he has recanted. The man who confessed in 4-hour torrents of detail is now claiming innocence. This, too, is consistent. The confession was a performance for the room. The courtroom is a different room, with different stakes, and he adapts. What he cannot adapt around is the evidence. The DNA taken by Dearborn Heights police months earlier has come back. The semen found in Wendy Jordan's body belongs to John Eric Armstrong. Fibers from Jordan's clothing are present in his Jeep. His defense argues consensual sex, claims she was alive when he left her. The jury does not believe him. March 2001. Guilty. First-degree murder of Wendy Jordan. Life sentence. June 18, 2001. Guilty. Kelly Jean Hood, Robin Brown, Rosemary Felt, Monica Johnson. Additional life sentences. He is taken to the G. Robert Cotton Correctional Facility near Jackson, Michigan. He is there now. So what do we learn from John Eric Armstrong? The first thing is this. The domestic performance is not incidental to the crimes. It is structural. Armstrong's wife, his child, his neighbors, his college enrollment, they are not evidence that he had a good side. They are cover material. They are the version of himself he constructed to explain his presence in the world, while the actual version of himself operated underneath. Every serial offender who maintains a domestic life is using that life as camouflage. The stability is the story he tells other people. The Jeep and Michigan Avenue are the truth. The second thing, the Navy gave him both access and impunity. A military institution that moves across jurisdictions, that normalizes the use of sex workers in port cities, that builds absolute loyalty among its members, is, for a predator operating within it, functionally invisible infrastructure. Whether Armstrong killed abroad or simply rehearsed killing abroad, he arrived home in 1999 with a refined methodology and a complete absence of consequence. He had never been caught. He had no reason to believe he ever would be. The third thing, and this is the one that matters most clinically, is the role of the paternal sexual abuse. Armstrong's relationship to sex is broken at the origin point. Before he has any framework for what intimacy is supposed to be, the person who was supposed to protect him uses his body as an object. Sex becomes inseparable from powerlessness, from violation, from the removal of will. When Armstrong grows up and begins having sex with women, he is always, on some level, managing that original wound. And when he kills them, when he removes their capacity to leave, to refuse, to exist independently of him, he is inverting it. He is taking the position his father held. He becomes the one who controls what the body in front of him is allowed to do. That is not justification. It is mechanism. Understanding the mechanism is how you prevent the next one. The fourth and final thing, Armstrong was caught because he escalated. because escalation is always the end of this. The compulsion does not plateau, it intensifies. The intervals between crimes narrow. The methods become simultaneously more practiced and more careless. He reports the body of a woman he has just killed. He returns to the same location to dump multiple victims. He cruises Michigan Avenue in a Jeep with a tiger tattoo on his arm and a name tag that says Eric. A man who had been truly careful would not have been caught. But no one like Armstrong stays careful, because the behavior is not a choice he is managing. It is a drive that is managing him. By April 2000, it is louder than any risk calculation he can make. He cannot stop, and that inability to stop is what finally brings him into the room, into the chair, and into the confession. The suitcase he'd been carrying for years. He finally put it down. John Eric Armstrong is 51 years old. He is serving multiple life sentences with no possibility of parole. He will die in the G. Robert Cotton Correctional Facility. The women he killed in Michigan were Wendy Jordan, Monica Johnson, Robin Brown, Rosemarie Felt, and Kelly Jean Hood. Their names are on record. Their families are still here. The women he may have killed elsewhere, across the ports of the Pacific, in the margins of a Navy deployment, in jurisdictions that still have open files, remain unconfirmed. Some of those cases may never be closed. The profile of John Eric Armstrong does not produce easy conclusions. He is not a monster who appeared from nowhere. He is the product of specific damage, specific circumstances, and a specific set of institutional failures that allowed him to operate for years without scrutiny. That is the part of the story we cannot afford to file away as exceptional. Because it isn't exceptional. It is exactly how this happens. If this episode raised questions for you about behavioral profiling, about the psychology of escalation, about the cases that go unsolved because the victims are already invisible to the systems that are supposed to protect them, the links to further reading are in the description below. This has been Mind of a Serial Killer.